Welcome back to yet another edition of the PowerMizzou.com podcast. I'm Gabe DeArmond, your host for tonight on State of the Tigers, our weekly show talking Mizzou football, brought to you by our friend James Carlton at State Farm Insurance in Webster Groves, Missouri. I was on the radio with James this morning. Now we're telling you about him here on YouTube. I was just texting with James. He's going to hang out with us for a little bit next Monday on this show on the bye week. So you'll get to hear straight from James. But if you want to talk to him before then, call 314-961-4800 or to go to carltoninsurance.net. He wants to get you the best deal he can on your insurance, as he did for me a couple months ago. And then he also wants to make a contribution to the NIL efforts. If you call him or email him or whatever, any way you get in touch with him, you tell him that you heard about his agency on Power Mizzou and on this show. He's going to donate to the NIL efforts on your behalf if you get a quote. So appreciate all of you joining us. We'll bring Jarod Hamilton onto the screen now. Those of you watching here on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, all that. We will throw up your comments and we'll get to your questions later on in the show. Jarod, it seems like we do this almost every day now. It's like 48 hours ago, and here we go again. This is the price we pay for covering a team that sits number 7 in the country, I guess.
Yeah. How do you feel about I feel like we're both on the same page. I was thinking kind of the same thing when I seen the poll drop. Like after I seen what Tennessee did, I was kind of like, it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really care that they beat Kent State 71-0. I think Tennessee has been a better team than Missouri so far. I've got no problem. I said if I had a vote, I would vote Tennessee number 2. Like I would go Texas, Tennessee. I think they've been that good. So I don't have a huge problem with it. Here's what polls are good for. They're good to get people angry. We like to fight. Like there is literally zero difference between being 7 and 6 right now. It matters not one bit.
Yeah, just how these fan bases go at each other, especially because of the beatings they put on each other the last few years. But you're right, and ultimately came down to what did each team do versus when they played the number 24 team at the time. And Tennessee, they handled business a lot better than Missouri did. And it doesn't make sense. Like it doesn't matter that they beat Kent State 71-0, but when you compare it to Missouri's,
38.
beating Buffalo and beating Murray State, it is what it is. So
yeah, I mean Tennessee's like 191-13. They have number 1 offense in the country, number 3 defense, and like I know that there are people that say, "Well, if beating NC State mattered, why didn't they jump last week?" Look, guys, it's just I promise you're spending more time thinking about this than the people voting in it are. I mean that's the big thing. You're trying to like it's just not that big a deal. So all right, I want to get this up real quick. Sam was listening to the last episode, noticed the number of F-bombs, so he wants to get the monetization fund going. We really appreciate that. I only remember 3 of them. I was told there were 4. So I don't know if we didn't actually break any rules or if just nobody at YouTube noticed, but I appreciate that. This is the clean version of the show. I don't think there's going to be a bunch of super pissed off, intoxicated people tonight. I could be wrong. I don't know, but we're not taking voicemails. So we have the control of what we put on the screen. But Sam, appreciate that, man. And if you want to super chat us, we'll certainly get to you. Immediately see all your questions. We're gonna get to those second half of the show. Got some other things we want to talk about. So Jarod, we always start talking about like what's wrong, right? The biggest perception of, hey, what could come back and bite Missouri? You worried about the penalty? Worried is the wrong word. Do you think the penalties are something that can come back and bite Missouri?
absolutely. Yeah, see, they've been facing teams that don't know what to do with them. Like they're not taking
Right.
advantage of Missouri making boneheaded play after boneheaded play, whether that's all the unsportsmanlike conduct penalties, whether it's something as simple as just lining up correctly, whether it's letting a team get all continue their drive on the 3rd and 15, whether that's being in the red zone and getting holding calls, getting points off the board. They're like any way a penalty can affect them, they've already used it this year. They're just not playing the competition that's knows what to do with it. So yeah, I think you start getting down into conference play and you keep doing little things like this. I mean, someone's definitely going to be able to get more than just 7 points out of all these turnovers. It's really going to hurt them.
I'm not going to say you're wrong, but Missouri is 107th in the country, 8.3 penalties per game for 71.7 yards. I'm going to read you a list of teams that have been more penalized through 3 games than Missouri. LSU, Alabama, South Carolina, Pittsburgh, Ole Miss, undefeated California, Georgia. The rest of them kind of suck. But like those are, Ole Miss, Georgia, Alabama. These are good teams who have actually been more penalized than Missouri. I don't think it's a huge concern because I don't really think it's going to continue. But there are two of the penalties that I think do at least merit a little more notice than the others. The formation penalties got to stop. Like, have you ever seen a team get a formation penalty when they were punting? I don't
Yeah,
even know how you do that.
yeah. I don't know about that one. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean that can't happen. Look, sometimes the guy that's out wide covers up the slot guy, or the slot guy covers up the tight end. It happens. I don't have a huge problem with that. I mean, if it happens every game, yes, it's an issue. But I don't know how you get a formation penalty on a punt. So some of that, just look. I remember saying frequently last football season and one specific time in 2018. Just figure out where to stand, man. That's your only job. Just figure out where to stand. It's not that hard. I mean, there is almost nothing I could do correctly on a Division I football field. You know what I could do? I could line up right. If they told me where to go, I promise I could be there.
Yeah, and Drinkin said, I think he said on Tuesday's press conference, and then after this game, like he takes blame for it. That's cool. That's fine. And to be honest, I mean, not that he wouldn't have done this if this was a 6-16, but
Right.
it's
That's
easier
what
to
he
do.
has to say.
Yeah, but it's much easier to do when your team is, your team's going to win. They're still blowing teams out, or they're winning handily. The game, even though they won by 6, there was a point where it's just like, it's not as close as the score indicates. So it's much
Right.
easier to take the blame. But at some point, again, as the competition ramps up, I just think of it like this. You're having all these problems. You can say, well, the season just started and all this. I can say, but you're having all these problems versus these teams. When you get into better atmospheres, you still haven't played a road game. When you get into those different atmospheres, when you get into conference play with teams with, a lot of real talent, you can't be doing that. You just can't do it.
Ideally, you greatly reduce them. I totally agree with that. The other ones that are obviously a little concerning are the discipline, Luther's too, and I get it. The other guy grabbed his mouthpiece first. I don't care. First guy doesn't usually get caught. You have to be disciplined enough to not retaliate, right?
Mhm.
And then the second one, look, I will continue to say this. He should have been kicked out of the game.
Yeah.
If he was not Luther Burden, he would have been kicked. If that's Mookie Cooper, he's out of that football game. I'm almost positive of it.
Yeah, I agree.
So like those, you add on to like Johnny Walker with the spitting penalty last year, penalties like that. I've got no patience for it all. So get those done, move on. I assume that they will. I don't think it's a huge issue. T-Rise says Josh Pate had a rant today about how terrible the officiating is. Look, officiating's bad, right? I
Gets
thought
worse
the
every year.
call, yeah, I thought the call on Toriano Pride was bad. I thought the no call on Theo Weiss was bad. But the refs aren't just out to get your team. Like, the teams Missouri's playing are getting called for fewer penalties. That's not because the refs hate Missouri and are out against Missouri. If the refs are bad, they're generally bad both ways. I can't believe that the refs went into that game going, all right, BC, baby, let's do it. We really got to build up the Eagles. So there are certain days, right, where yes, more of the calls go against you than usual. But we went through this in basketball season. After almost every loss, Dennis Gates was getting up there talking about the officiating and people got real tired of it. You know why? Because they lost. I don't want to hear that from a coach that's losing. And I'm not saying Eli Drinkwitz has done that. He's had a couple comments about the calls, but overall he's pretty even with it. But I'm just saying I'm not going to listen to the refs hate our team. And T-Rise, I don't know if this is your point or not. There's two teams on the field. I tend to believe bad calls even out over time.
Yeah, and to be honest, there's flags on every play, or plays that are
There
flag
could be.
worthy. So I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes it happens. I wonder, like after the Buffalo game, somebody asked about the penalties, and Drink kind of he does this thing where he pauses and he smirks and he smiles for a second before he says something. And I'm just thinking, I'm wondering if the refs are just like the reason Buffalo only has like 2 or 3 penalties and Missouri has like 10 or 11. They're just manhandling them so bad that I'm just wondering, are they thinking they're getting manhandled so bad this has to be a foul? that's that's all the only thing I can really think of. But like you said, penalties and stuff, tend to even out. I mean, I've been seeing all over Twitter stuff about the Chiefs and Bengals from both sides where I'm like, it's a flag this way, it's a flag this way, and that penalty wasn't called or is called here, and so here's it being called on the other team later or earlier in the game or whatever the case may be. So it happens.
And you just got to, you figure out over the course of a game, how are they calling it? If you've got 3 holding flags on the first 2 drives, then you better figure out, oh, they're going to call this. I got to be careful, right? If you're tackling dudes and they haven't called a hold in 2.5 quarters, then keep tackling them. You've just got to figure out how they're doing it. Sean says, Shannon Sharp said, you're either coaching it or you're condoning it. I put this comment up just to say that's the tamest thing Shannon Sharp has said on the internet in a few days. So good for Shannon. All right. So look, I said, I think on the post-game show, my favorite thing about this job is that you can show up every day and you have the chance to see something you've never seen before. I am sure it has happened. I have never seen 2nd and 59 before, not in person.
Yeah, no, that was they were on BC's 38, and then when they finally did a play that counted on their own 14, that's
Amazing.
I'm surprised Drink didn't call a timeout just to curse the team out. I'm not even gonna lie. That's incredibly terrible because in between Luther's penalties, they're still doing was it illegal formation and something
Yeah,
else?
you gotta. Do you remember? So they Mookie catches the pass. They're at the 38.
Yes.
They had one penalty that pushed them back to their own 48, right? They had a 15-yard penalty. I don't know what it was.
So it went like this. Mookie gets to the 38. That's the last good thing they did. Burden he does the mouthpiece thing.
Oh, that was the first one. Okay.
The next one is either
The
a
Mekhi
legal
Miller
formation
blindside block,
or okay, yeah, there we go. Personal foul.
which was a bad call, I thought.
Yeah, because he went with his hands up. I
It
thought
was a
that's
good
what they was
block.
so.
Yeah,
And
I
then
thought it was good.
after that, another Burden one. They have Nate Noel get the run. So I think that's what starts with 2nd 58, and then they close with a legal formation on the punt.
Oh, that was on the same. I didn't realize that was on the same drive. Okay.
Yep,
Okay.
all of that. That is, I would have called a timeout just to yell. I'm not gonna lie.
The most impressive thing about that might honestly be that on 2nd and 59, Missouri got 25 yards. But if you're in 2nd and 59 and you're Kirby Moore, what do you call it?
To be honest, the run play was smart because a lot of
Yeah.
teams, when you get in third, in obvious passing situations, well, that's what the defense is thinking you're going to do. And they're going to allow you to throw the screen or throw to the flat or run the ball up the middle and get as much as you want because you're probably not going to get the first down. So I think it was smart. I don't remember what they ended up doing on 3rd down, to be honest. So I just remember Noel's run.
Yeah, it was. It obviously didn't get a first down. I think it was a pretty short pass or something. I like Noel's run to get you in 3rd and manageable at 3rd and 34. on 3rd and 34, that's where I do the arm punt. Like, that's where I put Marquise Johnson in the game and just tell Brady, throw it as far as you can. And maybe we get PI, maybe we catch the ball. Worst thing, they intercept it, and it's just like a punt.
Well, I think they were playing the field position game after that because, again, they were on their 14. So I'm assuming Luke Bauer would have probably been at the end zone line at the plane or a little bit above it.
Sam points out, and I had forgotten this happened, that Louisiana Tech did face 3rd and 96, and I'm sure some penalties were involved. I think there was a fumble that got kicked back like 82 yards.
Yeah, a fumble Rooski that went back crazy amount of yards.
I mean, it's almost impossible to be in longer than 3rd and 96, I guess. So I guess the longest you could be is, like, if you're at the 2 and you're in 3rd and 1, you get pushed back to your own 1. That'd be 3rd and 98. So I guess you could be a little bit worse.
At what point do you just say this is a waste of time?
I mean, I think 2nd and 59 was a pretty big waste of time, if we're being honest about it.
That was crazy. And back to my point earlier, though, 2nd and 59 versus A&M versus definitely Alabama, Oklahoma, South Carolina. I feel like there's a good number of teams that take advantage of that. I think BC probably squandered that. I can't remember. But teams will take advantage and you do something that crazy. So they got to kind of reel it in.
Yeah, and Anthony saying, I don't think I've seen him add 2 penalties together. The reason is because the one on Luther was like post-play. If they both happen during the play, I don't think they're both enforced. But the one on Miller happened during the play, and then the one on Luther happened after the play. So that's why they get both.
So that's really 3, though, because the first one, the mouthpiece one, was on an incomplete pass to him. And then he
right, but that was after a different play. The
Miller block. Is that 3 penalties on top of each other then?
But on 2 separate plays. They weren't all on the same. They weren't like all on the same snap. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but what I'm saying is, so incomplete pass to Burden. Right after that play, he throws the mouthpiece. That's 1. Then the next play is a play that counts, but then.
And there were 2 penalties on that.
Oh, there we go. Okay, right. You're right.
Yeah. So anything other than the penalties that, like, you've seen through 3 weeks that you think, all right, man, this will bite them?
Pass blocking. Brady can't have him looking like that. There was one play where it was an incomplete pass, but I seen the BC guys kind of like rolling his legs and he leaned forward. It was almost like, if somebody was rolling right at his knees and he kind of jumped forward and he looked like he was diving. I was just like, you never want to see your quarterback throwing the ball in midair, leaning forward. He was just getting pressured way too much. There was multiple plays where we were like, Cameron Johnson, Marcus Bryant, what are you guys doing? They're going untouched.
I do think BC had a little bit better pass rush than I probably gave them credit for going in, but I agree. If there's anything you're looking at, because like we're talking about what keeps you out of a playoff. I mean, South Carolina, the one thing I know they've got is a good defensive line, right? Like you've got to be better than that in Columbia, South Carolina, if you're going to win that game, I think. All right. So the one other kind of thing that we had a pre-plan that we had to talk about. Do you agree with my premise that there are 6 SEC teams that have legitimate playoff hopes? Would you put that number any higher than that? Because they got 6 of the top 7 right now: Texas, Alabama, Georgia, Missouri, Ole Miss, Tennessee. Those 6 teams we know have legit playoff hopes. Is there anybody not in that group you would say should be?
Just specifically to answer your question, no. Are there teams on the bubble that could? I got LSU. They could, but that loss to USC earlier, I don't think they would do much work. But if we're just talking about another team that can float around, that'd be.
I just look at, they have a loss and they probably should have lost at South Carolina. Like I've seen enough that I don't think LSU's a bad team. I think LSU's a top 25 team. But when you're talking about, they have to host Ole Miss, they have to host Alabama.
Yeah, that's I've heard. I'm just saying that without looking at the schedule again, and so yeah,
Right.
they'll be gone. They'll be gone. But just as of right now, I mean, they're still top 15. I didn't see how Oklahoma did this past week. I know the week before they were struggling with
They
Houston.
beat Tulane it was like a 5-point game, and then they stretched it out 134-19.
Mm,
But
no,
again, Oklahoma,
I've
okay,
never
they're
been high
3-0,
on
they're
Oklahoma.
15th in the country. They play Tennessee this week, then they're at Auburn, then they host Texas, then they host South Carolina, then they're at Ole Miss, then they're at Missouri, then they host Alabama, and then they're at LSU. Like I don't
Did I count 6 or
a
7 losses
great year
there?
would be 8-4. Like if they go 8-4, that's
Yeah,
amazing. I might put them in the playoff at 8-4 against that schedule. Not
yeah.
really, but
Yeah, that's a good like 6 losses. I just counted.
yeah, there's a
So,
decent chance that
so they,
that's a
yeah, they haven't played nobody yet.
right.
Okay.
So, all right. So we've got those 6 teams with, I think, legitimate playoff hopes. Now they're going to beat each other some. Um, they're not going to all finish in the top 7. Is there any possible way 6 SEC teams make the college football playoff?
I would have to break down each schedule and see who they're playing
Well, I'm
against.
going to do some of that. Yeah.
Okay. One day I can't tell if this is gonna this is gonna be it. Um, but I got to hear the schedules.
Okay. So this morning, basically, the way I did it is I looked at the games that they have left against each other, right? Those 6 teams who plays each other. So what we are assuming in this exercise is that none of these teams is upset by anybody outside the top 6. Now that's probably unrealistic. Oklahoma may get somebody, LSU may get somebody, I don't know, South Carolina may get somebody, Arkansas may get somebody. But for the purposes of this conversation, we're going to assume there's no upsets. These 6 teams win every SEC game that does not involve another one of these 6 teams, right? So Texas only has Georgia
Right. I know that.
of those top 6 teams. Ole Miss only has Georgia of those top 6 teams. Missouri only has Alabama. So let's give Georgia wins over Texas and Ole Miss. Let's give Alabama a win over Missouri. Well, those 3 teams are all still 11-1. At 11-1, I think all 3 of those teams probably make it, right?
Texas, Alabama, Missouri.
Texas, Missouri, Ole Miss at 11-1.
What is Alabama?
We'll get to Alabama. We're not there yet. We just gave them a win over Missouri.
Okay. Then yes, I would think so.
Okay, so in this scenario, Georgia has beaten Texas and Ole Miss. Let's give them losses to Tennessee and Alabama because they play them both. If Georgia is 10-2 with wins over Clemson, Texas, and Ole Miss, there's no way they're out of the playoff, right?
Wins over Clemson, Ole Miss, and Texas. Now you got
Texas.
it. Yeah, you
They're in.
you got to put them in for that.
Right. At
That's
10-2, that team is in the playoffs. So we've got 4
yeah.
SEC teams in.
So what do we say?
So,
Texas, Georgia, Ole Miss, and Missouri.
And Missouri. Right.
Okay.
So now you've got Tennessee. We've already given them a win over Georgia.
Okay. Who else do they have?
Let's say and we've already given Alabama wins over Missouri and Tennessee, or Missouri and Georgia. So now you've got the Tennessee-Alabama game. The winner's 12-0 and the loser's 11-1. Like those 6 teams all have a path to the 6th place team in the SEC being 10-2 Georgia. That could mathematically happen.
That could. Be really hard.
It probably won't.
Right. It's so hard for me to imagine Georgia being 6th in this pack, but the way the schedule ranks, I did something like this for 4 Down Territory last week where I also did like who are they facing and maybe a couple of their ranked opponents outside the top 7. And Georgia, I think they got like 4 really tough games: Texas, Alabama, Ole Miss, and Tennessee. I don't know. I can't remember. We're saying
Yeah.
too many. Okay, we're saying too many, but
Texas, Tennessee, Alabama, Ole Miss. Yeah.
yeah. I think 10-2. I feel like I even wrote
Right.
that 10-2 would probably get them in there, considering what's going on. But I don't even know if I could see them losing more than one of those games. And that's probably just giving them the championship pedigree and all that stuff, to be
Right.
honest. But yeah,
But
if
I mean,
Georgia
the
is
point is
6, yeah, they're
we
definitely
just
gonna.
we just laid out a path to 11-1 Texas, 11-1 Ole Miss, 11-1 Missouri, 11-1 Tennessee, 11-1 or 10-2 Alabama, and 10-2 Georgia.
Right.
Like, if that happens, now again, is it going to happen? Probably. Like LSU could beat Ole Miss or Alabama. Missouri could fall to Texas, whatever. They could lose to somebody outside of this. Tennessee could go lose to Oklahoma, and that messes this all up.
Mhm.
But if those 6 SEC teams go win all the games they're supposed to win,
Yeah.
and the only losses are to each other,
Mhm.
who do you keep out?
First off, they wouldn't voluntarily try to keep any of them out because why?
Right, you can't. That's what I'm
Well,
saying. I mean,
well, well, hold
if
on. Well,
I can draw a path where all 6 of those teams have 10 or 11 wins, there's no way to keep any of them out.
wait a minute. Now I'm starting to think though. It's really going to be hard though, because you get your conference champion, then
Because then you're going to have the
five,
conference title game. Right.
there's 5 other spots, and then the group of 5, they get one. So that would basically
So
mean
there's so you're going to have the SEC, Big 12, ACC,
ACC.
and Big 10 champ. You're going to have the group of 5 champ. There are now 7 spots left.
Okay.
Can
6.
5 of them go to the SEC? In this scenario, if I can get you to somewhere where all of those teams are 10-2 or 11-1, I would absolutely argue they should all be it.
Right. Yeah, it's not that you don't have a point. I'm just thinking, okay, so
I mean,
another
then you
team.
get into, okay, Oregon. What if Oregon and Penn State are both 11-1? Like, I get
Not
it.
Penn State.
They're
I've not been in on Penn State at all, but I get what. Yes, for the sake of this argument, Oregon, maybe who would be runner up in the ACC, because like Miami's looking like they're
Louisville,
no,
Clemson,
no, 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 no.
Boston College. Right. I mean, no.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just
So,
trying to think of other teams who would be second in their conference in some way and what their argument would be. You're right, but
right. Like, let's say Utah goes 11-1 in the Big 12, but doesn't win the league because K-State wins the league.
okay.
I just
Yeah.
11-1. If you are 10-2 in the SEC, and again, we just drew up. It's not
Yeah,
hard.
the losses to particular teams, right.
Like, if you are 10-2 or 11-1, and you have only lost to a playoff team, there's no way you're not in the playoff.
Yeah,
Like,
and
and
now
now college football would riot if the SEC got 6 teams in the playoff.
well, it doesn't matter
But
because
there's a path.
in a couple of years, it's gonna be 14, and then there will be 8 teams in the or whatever. You just keep not upping it a notch from the SEC, but yes, there will be more teams. They'll be alright.
Right. I'm just saying that
It's possible.
like, at first I thought there was no way that one league could get, like, I started this show thinking one league, no way can they get 6 teams in. But then when you look at it, mathematically, you can make it happen. And I think it will be a fascinating thing to see because, like, let's say for the sake of argument, again, that Georgia is 10-2, and the only losses are Alabama and Tennessee. Like, if that team doesn't get in the playoff, Greg Sankey will single-handedly disband the playoff. Like, he will, the next day, it will just be over.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you're right. I like this idea. I just got to see how the rest of college football plays out, and obviously, one of these teams will lose to someone.
Right. That's the thing.
Yeah, but I get it.
I mean, and David says if your scenario plays out, Mizzou probably doesn't get in because of an easy schedule. Like, if you go 11-1 in the SEC, you are not getting left out.
Yeah,
I don't care who you, because Missouri at 11-1 would be a lot. Let's say the loss is Alabama, right? So that's a good loss. If Missouri is 8-0 going to Alabama, they're going to be ranked like 4th in the country, right?
Yeah, so they're going to be in the top 5, and that's going to be fresh in people's minds that when they went there.
So then a loss would knock them down to what, 9?
Yeah, then you get it back by getting. Well, I don't know. You said Oklahoma plays Tennessee this week. I don't know. By the time they face Oklahoma, they may be unranked, depending on how.
Right, but I'm just saying. Then you go win your last 4 games. Like if you're 7-0 going to Alabama, you're going to be ranked like 4th in the country. A loss will not knock you out of the top 10. You just go win your last 4 games. You're a top 18. You're not just in the playoff. You might be hosting in the playoff.
Yeah, and I mean, I wonder if something like, so if Missouri's okay. So Missouri's last loss was against LSU last year. No, against Georgia.
Georgia was later. Yeah.
Okay, so your last loss. So let's say it's the end of this season. You're saying you lost to Alabama on the road, and before that, you were doing really well. Even going to the Cotton Bowl, you beat Ohio State. You destroyed Tennessee. Like you've got all this, I guess, goodwill. It feels like, and I know last year's last year, but I feel like stuff like that kind of can help your case a little bit if
it's in the back of people's minds.
Yeah, like Missouri, even though they're not thought of as blue blood and stuff, I mean, they've kind of been in the picture, I guess.
Right.
If that makes sense. And so
now
that really helped them.
That scenario we just laid out also shows the importance of of winning some of these other games, of winning Auburn, A&M, even Oklahoma, right? Because again, we're talking about 6 teams that could win 10 or 11 games in this league. Now, if you're Missouri, if you go 10-2, that means one of your losses is outside the league, outside that group, right? So one of your losses is not quite as good a loss, and you've only got 1 win in it. Same thing for Ole Miss, right? Like Ole Miss, yeah, they can lose the game against Georgia, and that's not going to hurt them. But if then you also pair it by losing at LSU, you don't have a win in that group, and then you start putting yourself into dangerous territory. So I think those are the 2 teams because they don't have a non-conference thing. Like Texas went to Michigan and won, and that's going to carry some weight. So even though Texas's only game against those other SEC teams is a game against Georgia, they do have a win at Michigan that trumps anything Missouri or Ole Miss can do in the non-conference, right? If Tennessee loses to Alabama and Georgia, which is certainly possible, they're 10-2, but that's going to kind of be, okay, your best win is now Oklahoma or NC State, right? Like, and that's tough. So the more I think about it, I think they're just looking at who everybody plays. I think there's a pretty decent chance a 10-2 SEC team doesn't get it.
Yeah. I mean, like you just said, Tennessee, you got to snag one of those. Like that's just the truth. You're going to have to snag one of those. Texas has the goodwill. And also we know from last year, you lose your quarterback. If Quinn Ewers doesn't play for that Georgia game, you're saying, and you could say they have Arch who look good versus UTSA or whatever. But if you don't have your starting quarterback who's among one of the top players in the sport when you face Georgia, well, then there's another asterisk for voters or whoever may be thinking about this. So that's another thing for them. So
I just the more I look at it, like those opportunities, like there's 2 ways to get there. Either you win one of you beat other teams in that mix. So like if Missouri goes and wins it, I'll say this right now. If Missouri wins in Tuscaloosa, they are 100% in the playoff. 100%. Like they could lose another game or 2 and still get in. I think if they win at Alabama, they will be a playoff team. But if that doesn't happen, then the other way in for Missouri is you really can't slip up to anybody outside that group. Like if you're going to lose at Alabama, to feel good, you need 11-1. And I know this isn't breaking news, but like I'm just almost kind of talking myself through it live as I'm looking at the schedules and the games and all that, right? I mean, Georgia, because of the schedule, absolutely deserves to be in at 10-2.
I was just about
But
to ask you.
a lot of these other teams can't say that.
I was about to ask you, if you had to pick out of all these teams, who's a lock? Just one team to make the playoff, who would it be? Because for me, it'd be Georgia because, like you said, you could either play one or two tough games a year and have to win one of them and go undefeated the rest of the way, or just have one loss maybe. But if you're like
Yeah.
Georgia and you have four hard games and you split the two,
Split them,
like
yeah.
I think
Because Georgia beat Clemson, that's a pretty good. My lock would probably be Texas, but I like the logic on Georgia too. Makes sense.
And that's where we're just thinking if they split them. I personally do not think they will split them. I feel like it's close. I feel like there's more of a chance that they could sweep those games than I feel like they could lose multiple. But I feel like I don't know. They've just been good for too long. They've got one loss in I don't know how long, bro. So
yeah, it's look, it's going to be a lot of fun. I hope we get to continue having this conversation as things go. Like, I hope they, because that means a win in College Station. That means coming home and beating Auburn. Like, we started out this season for Mizzou saying, look, goal number one, you got to be 4-0 in September. You got to be 4-0 going to College Station, right? They are one win from making that happen. So assuming they do that on Saturday, and I think we will both pick them to beat Vandy, then the next checkpoint is you need to be 7-0 going to Alabama. Because if you're 7-0 going to Alabama, you're going to feel pretty good about your chances.
So
Vandy, it's A&M, UMass, Auburn after the bye.
A&M, UMass, Auburn. So that's two roads and a home.
Right.
Okay, so they're only on the.
I'm not saying that 6-1 knocks it. Like, you could lose at College Station and still have a chance. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying if checkpoint 1 was be 4-0, then checkpoint 2 for smooth sailing toward the playoff is be 7-0 going to Bama.
Yeah, definitely.
Because then you can lose that game and it's not going to kill you. If you're 6-1 going to Bama, losing that game's going to start putting you on the bubble. It just is.
You are in massive trouble, and especially if Tennessee's able, or a team like Tennessee or Ole Miss, if they can win one of their two games was kind of a toss-up. Yeah, you're now at the mercy of, well, who's the second best team?
That's what it is. You're at the mercy of the committee.
Yeah, who's the second best team of whatever conference you want to put in there.
And again, we understand, guys, this is getting way ahead of ourselves. Like, I mean, I'm going to look at the SEC games for this weekend real quick and just kind of see what's going on this weekend. I'm not sure there are any real good ones, but yeah, Tennessee at Oklahoma. Like, Tennessee could go lose in Norman, and then this whole conversation is stupid, right? Or next week when Missouri is not playing, I'm sure there are going to be some SEC games in there, and Georgia, Alabama, that's two teams that are playing each other. But Kentucky could go to Oxford and win. I don't think they will, but if they do, then that just we're spending so much time talking about what could happen, and some game is going to happen, and we're going to go, well, that just dicked it all up. Why did we spend all this time talking about what could happen?
Gotta live in the now, Gabe.
Yeah, right.
Gotta live in the now and talk about the future.
Look, man, we're trying to fill 2 or 3 shows a week. We got to talk about some stuff, so This is what we're going to talk about. So want to remind you real quick before we get to the questions and all that to get in touch with our friend James Carlton at State Farm Insurance in Webster Groves. His information's been running across the bottom of the screen throughout the show. CarltonInsurance.net, Facebook.com/Carlton Insurance, or you can give him a call at 314-961-4800. You give James a call, tell him you heard about him on Power Mizzou. He's going to donate to Mizzou's NIL efforts, and if you get a quote from him, and everybody wins that way. So get in touch with James. Like I said, he's going to be on the show with us for a little bit next week. So now I want to kind of do rapid fire, hit some of these questions. Does Vandy losing change your outlook on this weekend?
No, they were going to beat Vandy anyway. Vandy is just
Fair.
the only thing that changed for me is Vandy is what Vandy has always been. I wrote this and it's going to be in my column a little bit tomorrow. They seem like they're never ever going to stop going backwards, and then they take a leap forward. You're just like, good for Vandy,
And then
and they're
they
just
fall down.
like, yeah, they're just like, no,
Right.
let's take it on back.
So at the beginning of the season, like let's say I had Vandy here. Well, they beat Virginia Tech and it went up here. Well, it's just back down here now. They
Yeah,
lost to Georgia State. I mean, and look, you and I had talked before last week. BC always seemed like a bigger threat than Vandy to me. Vandy's an SEC game. Missouri knows them. That wasn't. You've had a test already. BC was the one that I thought if they're going to trip up, that's where they're going to do it.
yeah. For one, Vandy has lost several pieces. Like they don't have Will Shepard. He's at Colorado. They don't have McGowan. He was at BC. They don't have their freshman receiver. I feel like he's now a sophomore. Goes to Georgia, I think, right now. So they
Oh
lost.
yeah, I forget his name.
But they had a talented wide receiver trio. That was their thing. Don't have that. So I just never thought it was really just a Vanderbilt beating Virginia Tech helped Missouri. Like, okay, your opponent now looks better. Losing to Georgia State just brings them back down to okay.
Right. And Vandy doesn't come in here with the confidence of 3-0 and hey, if we can get this one, we can really talk about a bowl game. Vandy comes in here with everybody going, same old Vandy.
Correct.
And
Same
that's
old
the problem.
Vandy.
So Jason wants to know, why is there so much hate for Brady Cook? And I want to be clear, I don't really think there is. I think there are people critical of him. I think here's our problem as a sports fan society. We have taken the ultimate team game and made it about one person on every team. I said this on the radio this morning. I have watched in my entire life 3 or 4 quarterbacks who, almost regardless of who is around them, can be the reason their team is competing for titles.
Wait, can I guess?
Yeah, go ahead and guess.
Guess Pat, Joe Montana, Elway, Peyton?
Brady.
I'm tripping.
Brady.
Yeah,
Brady. I don't put Peyton in that. I put Brady in it.
Yeah, for sure. I can't believe I missed that.
I think Josh Allen is kind of, he's competing for championships. He hadn't won any yet, so it doesn't count.
Yeah.
But he we'll find out some this year because I think he's got an average team and I think they're going to be pretty good. But beside the point, we're talking, you can count on one hand, maybe need an extra finger or two. So if that is your standard for Brady Cook, he's going to fall short. I think our problem is we just go, well, what's his record? Oh, he's 11-2, so he's an elite quarterback. No, he was a very good quarterback, certainly above average, with a pretty good defense and one of the best running games in America and a lot of things around him, and he played his part in that. So all Missouri, like, they're not asking him to be Patrick Mahomes. They're not asking him to be 2010 Cam Newton or 2023 Jaden Daniels. He doesn't have to do that. If the standard is perfection, he is going to fall short. And almost every other quarterback in the history of football is going to fall short. I think what we have is not hate for Brady Cook. I think a lot of people are way too simplistic in the way that they talk about football.
I think another angle of that is, I say it all the time, comparison is thief of joy. I think that's what it is. So you're looking at other teams in the same stratosphere as Missouri, and if they've got a quarterback that's doing what Jaden Daniels is doing, or they got a freshman quarterback like Tennessee does, or something like that, you are comparing. Whether you're just making, or whether you're saying it out loud or not, you see that game and then you see this game and you say, well, we're winning, but why are we not doing that? And it's a lot of worrying about what other teams got going on, and everybody does it, but it becomes a habit, and now you're just thinking like, we have all of this talent here, we should be doing X, Y, and Z, like that quarterback's doing there, and that's how you get Drink saying he's had people on Twitter say Drew Pine should start because, he's missed maybe one or two passes all year and very limited reps.
Right. And I want to be clear, like Brady has to be good for Missouri to get where it wants to go. I'm not saying that Brady doesn't have to be. He probably has to be a little bit better than he's been through 3 weeks. Do you agree with that? Like if he plays at this level all year, can Missouri make a playoff? I think maybe they could.
They start toying with that 10-2 bubble we was talking about. That's
right,
what
but I think maybe they could. But he has to be better. But like they're not going to ask him to do what Texas is going to ask Quinn Ewers to do. It's just, it's a different. There are plenty of ways to win a football game. And so, I don't think there's hate for Brady Cook. I think people are being a little too hard on him at this point.
I think they've been hard on him since 22, to be honest.
But then they let up last year. He started winning some games, and everybody was okay. But then, as soon as LSU and Georgia happened, they came back.
I mean,
it's how people analyze football,
right?
And when I say people, I mean general Joe Public. That's the way Joe Public analyzes football.
Right.
And I think I think there are flaws in doing it that way. Let's see. Does Burden's behavior on the field Saturday affect his draft stock?
No.
All right. I got real quick. Can I just interject here? Jamar Chase.
There you go. I mean, I bet you I definitely didn't listen to Zach Taylor's press conference. I don't listen to nobody in the press conference. But I bet you he would have said the same thing Drink said after this game. Yeah, you can't be doing that, but I'm taking him on my team, and I want the owner to pay him whatever he asked for. So no, and it doesn't affect Luther's draft stock because one, it's really his first time acting out kind of like this. He has his dramatic J-Mac moments, as you say, but that's not a character issue. And then two, we talked about this before, him just being the first one, at the podium after drinking, addressing it and not. I mean, he handled it better than Chase did or some of these other guys. I'm not answering that or nothing. He said, I got to cut it out. And so right then and there, sure, you can say, yeah, he hurt his team. But the fact that in the game, he got the third down catch to end the game and win the game, basically, and then he answered at the podium, I think teams are probably saying, like, that's a kid who responds to his own adversity, I guess, or whatever.
And here's the other thing. You remember last year after the K-State game, he was right in the K-State sideline just talking all sorts of noise. Everybody loved it then. And I get it's after a game, not during a game, but like that's him. You have to deal with it. And sometimes it might get you a flag. Now, you don't want two, right? Two is the problem. But if he's going to play the way he did on Saturday, I can probably live with a 15-yard penalty now and again.
Yes, again, because it's only his first time where you're just like, Luther, you're tripping. That's it.
Yeah.
It's the only time you can really say he's acting out. And because he didn't get ejected and he was able to make up for it in the game and after, no one's going to be thinking about it.
Agreed. Mike says Norfleet has to be harder to tackle. Look, we both said on his first catch, he looked like he went down before he could get hit on that shoulder. I'm a little surprised he played on Saturday.
Yeah, no, what did you call our boy Pete? What's his name? The Mizzou injury report update guy, whatever.
Oh, Thamel, yeah.
So once I seen that, I said, You mean you did because you don't need him. They didn't need him for this game. 3 catches for 10
he had 3 catches
yards.
for 10 yards. Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't need him. Tyler Stevens and Jordan Harris, and they were doing all right. It wasn't really no problems at tight end. You could have saved them for after the bye week, Mm-hmm. So yeah, it looked like he was trying to avoid, contact to that shoulder. I don't know. I wouldn't have played, but
I wouldn't play him this week either, to be honest.
But now at the point, I wonder. While that makes sense, what do they do now? They already played him. I mean, I know you can, but
so they will. But here's the other problem. When I did snap counts, I don't know if you saw this. Jordan Harris and Tyler Stevens were on the field for a combined 36 snaps. You know how many of those snaps Missouri threw the football on?
Mm,
2.
just okay.
2. So
Yeah,
basically, they were saying if these guys are at tight end, we're running the ball. If Norfleet's at tight end, we're probably throwing. Like,
yeah.
if I can figure that out, Clark Lee can figure that out.
Too bad Clark Lee doesn't have the team that's going to make it make sense anyway. So
Right. That's fair. That's fair. All right. Connor wants to know who's your number one team. I said earlier, if I had a vote, I'd vote Texas number one right now. What about you?
Texas.
Yeah. I think they've done the most so far. Let's see. Trying to roll through and get your questions. Just want to put this comment up. Ray says, I'm imagining explaining to my wife that I donated money to this chat and I'm not feeling that bold, but maybe one day. All right, Ray, we'll keep holding out, man. You got your comment on for free, but we'll keep holding out. Passing game, 2 total TDs with this receiving core. Should we be concerned?
No, I guess I look at it differently. I think you should be happier that the run game is showing early on what it can do, and later down the year, you have that in addition to the passing game. Like the passing game, I think is going to work itself out, but it's good to know in the meantime, especially in the game like this, the run game can kind of carry you downfield and still sustain drives while you're figuring out the rest.
Theo Weiss went down at the 1 yard line once. Josh Manning went down at the 1 yard line. Mookie Cooper went down about the 2 yard line. And on Luther's jet sweep, what if Brady just goes like this? They're 3 yards away from 5 touchdown passes, and nobody's talking about this. I only care that you get in the end zone. I don't care how you get there. The passing game is not perfect, like I said. I think there are going to be days Missouri needs it to be better than it has been so far. But I think it's all right. Let's see what if Boston College's only loss is to Mizzou?
I don't know I don't think they have a strong enough schedule. If I'm just thinking, that's what I'm guessing. I don't know what it is. I'm just assuming.
I'll look up their schedule. So they are, whatever. They're 2-1 right now. They host Michigan State. That's probably a win, right?
I put them in the same tier. I don't know.
Yeah, Michigan State's okay. They host Western Kentucky. They should win that. They're at Virginia. Virginia kind of sucks. They're at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech, like they lost to Vandy. They're going to end up.
Yeah, lost their credibility.
Yeah, but they're also going to end up beating somebody. Like I wouldn't be at all surprised to see Virginia Tech win that game, especially because it's a Thursday night game. I bet Virginia Tech beats them in Blacksburg. They host Louisville. Louisville's a pretty decent team. They host Syracuse. They're at SMU. They host North Carolina. They host Pitt. Like they just play. Every team they play is average. Like
they're trying to be top 25. That's
right.
it.
And for Missouri's sake, yes, if they could go 10-2, 11-1 against that schedule and be ranked like 23rd in the college football playoff ranking, because that's what K-State did last year. You remember they went, I think, 9-3 or something like that. And they snuck into like number 23 or 24 in that last ranking. And that gave Missouri a bump to say, see, we had another ranked win. So that type of thing can help Missouri. Like if you're 10-2 and you're in the fight with other 10-2 teams and BC is ranked 22nd, yeah, it does help. It does matter. So that's the kind of thing you start watching.
I think I seen somewhere in the chat. I don't know. You may have to find it. Someone asked, like, should Missouri fans want Oklahoma to beat Tennessee? You want all your opponents on the schedule to beat as many good teams as they can, except for Missouri, and you want all the teams that Missouri doesn't play on their schedule to fold. You want LSU to lose to USC and so on and so forth.
And you also want those teams that it looks like you're going to be contending for a playoff spot with, you want them to lose every chance they get. You want Tennessee to lose. You want Notre Dame to lose. You want USC to lose to Michigan this weekend. Yes, you want all of those teams to lose. No question. And what you want is Oklahoma to beat Tennessee, but then lose a couple other games.
Yeah, so ironic. All their ops are their friends. Their closest friends are the people they need to beat up basically when they play them, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah. Shane says, I was looking at Ole Miss's schedule earlier. How is it not the easiest in the
Can't
SEC?
remember.
So
You just got
I'm
Georgia and
gonna,
LSU, right? That's like big games.
yeah, I'm gonna look up Ole Miss's schedule real quick. And we're not talking non-conference. We're just talking in the league. So they're home against Kentucky. They're at South Carolina. They're at LSU. They host Oklahoma. They're at Arkansas, host Georgia, at Florida, home against Mississippi State. It's not a super strong schedule, obviously. Their game against Georgia, Missouri's game against Alabama are pretty much, they cancel each other out. They both play Oklahoma at home. The next hardest game for Ole Miss is at LSU,
Missouri has
which to me is a tougher game than Missouri's third hardest game, which I think you would say is at Texas A&M.
correct.
So that's where Ole Miss has just a very slight difference. Their third toughest game is a little bit better than Missouri's third toughest game. Again, nobody's saying Ole Miss plays a juggernaut schedule. They don't. But they get Florida and Mississippi State. That's like Missouri getting Vandy and Mississippi State. They're both at South Carolina. They both play Arkansas. Basically, the difference is what we're left with is Ole Miss plays Kentucky and Missouri plays Auburn. I don't really think there's any difference there. So we're splitting hairs, but the difference is Ole Miss's game at LSU is a little bit tougher, I think, than Missouri's game at Texas A&M. All right, I feel like now we're getting into the crazy stuff. What if Mizzou goes 11-1, but the only loss is UMass? Kick them out, baby. They don't get in. You don't get in. Look, I kicked Notre Dame out for losing to Northern Illinois. Northern Illinois would kick UMass's ass up and down the field.
But Notre Dame doesn't have a top 4 team left on its schedule, though, that it could get its lick back, though.
If you lose to UMass, you're out.
A road win?
You're out.
You're out. Alabama couldn't help.
No, he could get you back to like the Citrus Bowl or something. You lose to UMass, you don't get to play in the playoff. I'm just gonna. I mean, that's how it is. That's okay. That's common sense right there. Let us see. Oh yeah, there was the question about if you want Oklahoma to beat Tennessee. Oh, Mr. Oh, hey, we talked Ray into giving us $5. He's got to explain it to his wife, though.
Oh, man. Well, thank you, Ray.
What can he tell his wife? Like, here's what I always tell people. Just tell her there are way worse things you could be paying $5 for on the internet. Way worse things, man.
Yeah.
Also, a lot of those things are free. So,
Gabe is Ray tonight, y'all. First the Shannon Sharp. Now this.
Yeah, just go to Shannon's Instagram and you get it free. Ray already had to explain to her why I paid extra to look at other teams' message boards. So yeah, I don't think she's going to be offended. Just tell her we're really funny, Ray.
Just say it's better than you eating out tonight. Instead of eating out, right here.
Is it? I think it is. I mean, personally, I think it is. But
well, you don't think this is better than eating out?
No, I think it is. That's what I'm saying.
Oh.
So, I feel like we're going downhill here. But seriously, appreciate about 150 people here live on a Monday night. That's great. And appreciate all you guys who were here live. If you were here, like the video, comment, just subscribe. You'll get a heads up when we go live. We're gonna have I'm gonna do a show on Wednesday with Chris Lee of Vandy Sports previewing the game. I've got a big one on Thursday. I don't want to tell you what's coming on Thursday because things happen and I don't want to promise something if a schedule gets messed up. But we're going to have a show on Thursday that you guys are going to want to check out. And, we'll be here all week. We'll be back here on Saturday night, I guess. I forgot what time the game was. 3:15 game. We'll probably be about 7:30, something like that. It's a primetime show. Live from Furrow Field. So like, comment, subscribe, do all those things if you're listening on the podcast. As always, get in touch with our guy, James Carlton, carltoninsurance.net, 961-4800. Jarod, I don't know, man. Parting shots? Anything?
Tomorrow's gonna be a busy day because players, we could drink, players, everything. So like tons of stuff coming. Same
Yeah.
old, same old.
Yeah, media day tomorrow. Like I said, shows Wednesday and Thursday. Big week here through Vandy. Then a bye week, and who knows? We might take one day off, but we'll get going again. So appreciate you guys hanging out with us, and we will be back with you. Talk to you next time.